Hello, and welcome to another segment of HCTV What's Now. This is where Hazel Crest is proud. On today's segment, I do have two fine gentlemen that I'll be sitting down with, Chief Davis as well as Sergeant Milligan. They will be here to talk about our new DICE program that was sponsored by Amazon. So stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to another segment of HCTV, where we are Hazel Crest proud. I'm your host, Laverne Murphy. So on today's show, I do have with me the Chief of Police, Mitchell Davis. He has served the village of Hazel Crest for more than 9 years, and he is here today to talk about an awesome program to help with community safety. This program was actually sponsored by Amazon, and so we are excited to hear more information about this community safety program. So, Chief Mitchell, thank you for coming on HCTV.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so I know there's this phenomenal program that you have, which is called DICE, right? And please tell us, what does DICE, the acronym, stand for? What is that?
DICE stands for Data Informed Community Engagement.
Okay, and so it is about community engagement, about community policing. So share with us a little bit about the program.
Well, the program, as you mentioned, sponsored by Amazon. And what Amazon did was they are trying to get more involved with community efforts. And they brought to us a company called SIMSI. And SIMSI has done this in other areas, but they've never done it like they're doing it here in Hazel Crest. The DICE program, once again, Data Informed Community Engagement, is all about not people, but making places less attractive to crime. And by looking at the data to see where crime is happening, we can work on things together as a community to determine how we can make those places less attractive for crime.
Okay, and that's great. And you say that it's done other places, but not here in the South suburbs, right? So, or the Southland. So Hazel Crest is creating a model for other communities in the Southland to follow. So that's very impressive.
Absolutely. And actually, we're setting a nationwide model because they've done some work in other communities, but not like they're doing it here. So they're using us as a model, and the success that they saw here in Hazel Crest, they are already in the process of rolling it out around the country.
Wow, being a trailblazer here in Hazel Crest, right? So hats off to you and your department for that. And so walk me through a DICE. If I'm a resident, how does this benefit me?
Great question. So the way DICE worked, as I mentioned, is that we're not focusing on people and addressing people and the things that people do. We look at the data, and the data is drawn down and it shows us what areas of town are having certain types of incidents as far as crime is concerned. And then we meet together with the community and we brainstorm and try to determine, why are we having something here? Could it be due to the business that's located there? Could it be due to other factors that we're not thinking about? And then when we come up with those things, we get input from the community to ask them, how can we make these places less attractive so that criminals want to come there and commit crimes?
Right. You know, the more minds that you have at the table, the better you can come up with greater solutions, right?
Absolutely.
And so where is the data driven from?
So the data comes from our CAD system. So CAD stands for computer aided dispatching, and that's what police departments use now. When you're dispatched somewhere, when a dispatcher takes a call, it goes into a computer system, our reports go in there, and it tracks all the data, the locations, the people involved, all those different things are included in our CAD system. And so one of the companies that Amazon brought in, they drew our data out of our CAD system, and they used analytics to determine where it was happening geographically, what types of crimes, and they asked us, and we asked the community, what kind of crimes do you want to focus on? What do you all believe are the big crimes in your town? And we would tell them from a police department, well, that might be what the citizens say, But as a law enforcement agency, this is what we see. And so they pick those topics and they determine where they're happening at. And we look and we, once again, we work with the community. That's where the community engagement comes in, and they give us recommendations and we work together to solve those concerns.
Wow, I love it. So this is truly community engagement, right? This was truly built on the mindset and feedback from the community. So not just something you all put out, but you really engage the community to make sure that it does benefit the community per se. So you receive a lot of calls, right? That's coming in through ecom, right? And so how is that kind of put out on the website, right? That's where residents can go and retrieve the information. And so is it categorized? So say if I want to know in a certain neighborhood, let me go here. How is that broken down?
So what they did was they created a dashboard where citizens can go,
Mhm.
and there's the data that's brought in. So there's data that we use in our meetings, and then there's data that we use on the dashboard. And on the dashboard, you can look in your neighborhood and it'll tell you what crimes were committed, and you can put time frames, you can
Mm.
put what dates, you can put what time of day. So there's different tabs on that dashboard that citizens can go to and actually look up that data specific to their area.
Right. And I like that because sometimes residents may feel like, oh, crime is high in my neighborhood when they can actually go to factual information on the DICE dashboard and see, oh, well, there was only two. And maybe so I'm thinking that there was more. So we love the fact that you provide this accurate information for residents.
And that's a great point because, as the acronym says, it's data informed community
Hmm.
engagement. It's not anecdotal. Because
Exactly.
oftentimes people believe based upon, hey, somebody on my block got a car stolen. So,
Hmm.
there's so many cars getting stolen. But then when you look at the actual data, it shows that, you know what, that's the first car to be stolen in 2 years in your neighborhood. So it gives us the reality of what's actually happening.
Right, absolutely. And so it helps not only residents, but businesses as well, right? And so how can businesses take advantage of this information?
So we had part of this process, which was so amazing, is because we had things that were happening in the business district. Part of the engagement from working with the community was how can we help the businesses? So we came out with a campaign. And the campaign,
Mhm.
the village printed up signs because we were having people getting, the thing that happened was people's cars were getting stolen, but
Mm.
most of the time they were unlocked.
Mhm.
So how could we help? And we said, okay, the citizens told us, well, if I'm just running in to get my cleaning, I may not lock my door. Or
Mhm.
I may be going in to sit down at a meal and forget to lock my door. And so what we did was we got signs printed up and we gave them to every business in Hazel Crest. And it says right on their door, they mounted them saying, did you lock your car? And after passing those out to every business in Hazel Crest and making that a campaign, when we
Mhm.
had our subsequent DICE meetings, the data showed that they had decreased.
Mm.
And we'd like to believe it's due to those efforts, but that's where the data information came in and it directed our efforts. And we believe that those efforts were successful.
Great, great. I actually had the opportunity to attend one of the DICE programs, and exactly what you're explaining. You make sure that you're involving the community, you break off into sessions, you brainstorm on ways to solve or help reduce crime in certain areas. So, inviting other residents out, what would you say? How can they be more informed about this information? Where should they find the information?
So our sergeant who's over community policing, Sergeant Robert Milligan,
Hmm.
he has always had what's called zone meetings. We have 3 zones that we have designated in the village of Hazel Crest. And people would get invited out to these zone meetings and we would print out all this paper. These are all the calls for service over the last month in your particular zone. Well, we were killing a lot of trees. And so right now, we're having one DICE meeting, and that's going to be the format of our zone meetings. And instead of having 3 zone meetings, we're going to have one meeting. And the format of that, and Officer Milligan, Sergeant Milligan, recently promoted, Sergeant Milligan,
Hmm.
will now be able to use the dashboard and other information to inform the residents. So they can call us to get information, but if you really want to know what's going on, come to the meetings, come to the
Hmm.
community meetings. The information is being given out People often say that they don't hear about anything, but these resources are available. And Sergeant Milligan does a tremendous job of putting this information out. And he emails folks to let them know when the meetings are going to happen, but that's where the information is being disseminated at our zone meetings. And once again, they'll be once a month and they'll be in the DICE format, and we'll be using this amazing technology that we have with data-informed community engagement to keep the citizens involved.
Great, great. And so thank you for mentioning our newly appointed Sergeant Robert Milligan, who will be actually up next to talk more about the DICE program. But just to piggyback off what you were saying, as far as more information for our residents, it's always on our website, as far as our social media, our e-newsletter, our website, where they can actually go and find those particular dates, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. They will be in the police department on the village website. The police department has a Facebook page, and then also Sergeant Milligan has an email list. So if you want to contact the police department and get added to that email list, he sends out reminders to those folks that are on that distribution list to make sure that they're aware when the meetings are going to be done also.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Chief, for coming on and sharing more information about this DICE program. And so please stay tuned. Coming up, we do have our Sergeant Robert Milligan here to share more information about the DICE program. And welcome back to HCTV, where we are Hazel Crest Proud. Again, I'm your host, Laverne Murphy, and we have segment 2 of the DICE program. And here to talk about more information about the DICE program, we have Sergeant Robert Milligan that will have boots on the ground actually covering the program for our community. So without further ado, thank you so much, Sergeant Milligan, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And so we left off with Mitchell. He was talking about that the actual DICE program meets once a month.
Yes.
But where is the meeting held, actually? We didn't talk about that part.
So the meetings will be held at the Hazel Crest Police Department, 3000 West 170th Place in Hazel Crest, Illinois.
All right.
At 6 o'clock every third Thursday of the month.
All right. Every third Thursday
Yes.
of the month, 6 o'clock, Police Department.
Correct.
All right, we got it. And so for individuals in the meantime and in between time the meetings, how can someone find out information or go to the actual dashboard? How can they retrieve it?
If you go to the village website, there is a link to the DICE dashboard, and you can access it that way.
Okay. And so as a resident, when I go on this website, what am I going to see once I get to that dashboard?
So you look for the link, and we have various information on crime. It's actually real time. So if you're looking for instance, traffic stops, if you're looking for burglaries, anything from burglaries, thefts, it's a breakdown of each individual actual crime. So you can say, hey, I want to know if there was a burglary in my neighborhood. It's broken down into zones. So we have zone 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. And so what is the purpose of the zones? Why do you have it by zone?
So we have zone basically is similar to beats. In Chicago, they use beats. In Hazel Crest, we use zones. So at the beginning of roll call, every officer is assigned to a zone. That zone is your primary focus. So you have roll call, the sergeant issue zones, and each patrol would be assigned to the zone. After they're assigned to the zone, that would be your beat zone for the day, and all calls that come out in that address will be dispatched to you along with the backup car if it's available or necessary.
Okay. And so tell me, where are some of the zones? Can you name some of the zones for our residents?
So we are actually in zone 3 right now. The village is located in zone 3. The police department is zone 2. So basically it breaks down into almost not necessarily a quadrant, but in the areas. Hazel Crest proper, the whole Hazel Crest proper is actually zone 1. When you come back to 175th and Kedzie, it breaks down at 175th and Kedzie. Everything south of 175th and Kedzie would be Zone 3. The Pot Hills area is Zone 1.
Oh,
So I'm
okay.
sorry, the Pot Hills area is Zone 2.
Okay, great. And so that's good to know. So when we're seeing our friendly officers, just, circulating the community, we know that they're out about it and protecting the community.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so I know that you'll be spearheading the DICE program and making sure we're communicating with our residents. But in the meantime, so if there's none 911 emergencies, you're the person to call, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so what are those calls? Because they're not 911, what is the other format or number that individuals should call?
So a non-emergency call can be anything so far as a quality of life issue, where you're having, let's say for instance, the neighbors are throwing, the garbage cans are all over the place. You have trash, which may attract, raccoons or something similar to that. You can call me and we can address it. I can come out and see what's going on and notify the proper authorities, which will probably be inspectional services, so we can see what's going on in their property and why is this quality of life issue going on, and see how we can rectify it.
Right. And so when you speak of quality of life, it is so important to residents. And to know that there's an officer that can intervene, right, and kind of help solve the problem. I know I had the opportunity to work with you on a resident who actually had, some neighbors with some loud music, and you were able to actually go out, talk to the neighbor, and now things are neighborly and things are fine, right?
Yes.
And so that's why your role is so critical, right? Because you're used as that conduit to make peace in the community.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I enjoy talking to people. And a lot of times in the day we live in today, a lot of people are not comfortable with going knocking on the neighbor's door. When we grew up, back in the day, if I did something on the corner, my mother knew by the time I got back to the house, right? But every neighbor is not always neighborly. We don't want anyone to get into confrontations or somebody get seriously hurt, over a trash issue. We will address it. You can call me and I'll come out and I'll speak to both parties and see what we can do to resolve the issue.
Right, that is great. And so that's good to know. And so the number that they would call?
They can call the non-emergency number, which is 708-335-9640.
All right. So Sergeant Milliken, thank you so much. Congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you.
Very well deserved. And
Thank
so I know the community will be working with you a lot more through the DICE program, which again just has been relabeled, right? Because you were having these what you call it, the zones, and so now they're DICE because they're now more analytical for individuals to actually go in and see.
So we're transitioning from zone, and we're putting it all together. I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Sergeant Milliken.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And so there you have it, more information about the DICE program. If you do have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to our Chief of Police as well as our Sergeant. And so I do thank both of them for coming on today's show and introducing you to our DICE program if you are not familiar with it. Again, I'm your host, Laverne Murphy, and thank you so much for tuning in.